Welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where ancient stories aren't comfort food, they're warnings. Tonight's tale is about a document that was never meant to be read aloud. A scroll said to know not just how the world ends, but when. This is the scroll that predicted the end of time. The scroll was discovered where time itself seemed thinner, not in a grand library, not sealed in a king's tomb. It lay behind a collapsed wall in a coastal monastery, wrapped in oilcloth so old it had turned brittle as ash. The monks who found it first believed it was nothing. Another forgotten prayer, another list of names swallowed by centuries. But the moment it was unrolled, the candles in the room dimmed, as if the flame itself had learned to be afraid. The ink did not fade. It did not crack. It looked freshly written, wet, almost, despite the dust layered thick around it. And the language was wrong, not foreign, not ancient, wrong. Letters bent in directions the eyes struggled to follow, like symbols designed for a mouth that didn't exist. At the top of the scroll was a single line, written clearly enough to be understood. When this is read, the ending has already begun. The abbot ordered it sealed again. History had taught them caution, but history also taught them something else. Curiosity always wins. By dawn, the first monk who had touched the scroll was dead. No wounds, no sickness. He had simply stopped mid-step, his face frozen in an expression of stunned recognition, as though he'd just remembered something too late to matter. The others whispered about curses, but one among them, a scholar named Elias, saw something else. Patterns. Elias had spent his life copying texts that described the end of things, empires, dynasties, stars. He believed endings followed rules, and rules could be learned. He unrolled the scroll again. This time, the symbols shifted. Lines rearranged themselves as he watched, forming words he understood. The scroll did not translate itself into a known tongue. It translated itself into him. The text adapted to the reader, changing meaning, tone, even structure, as though the scroll was not meant to be read, but to read you. It spoke of time as a river that could not stop flowing, only narrow. It spoke of moments piling up like sediment until pressure turned them into stone. And then, near the center, it listed events, small ones at first. A bell will ring where no bell hangs. A child will speak a sentence never taught. The sea will pull back farther than it should. Elias dismissed these as poetic tricks until they began to happen. A bell rang in the monastery in the dead of night, though the tower had collapsed years earlier. A novice child muttered a phrase in a dead dialect no one present had studied, and fishermen returned from the coast, pale and shaking, reporting a shoreline drawn back so far it exposed the bones of ships no record had ever named. The scroll continued. Dates appeared next, but not as numbers. They were described as alignments, the angle of shadows at noon, the taste of iron in rainwater, the way dogs refused to enter certain streets. Each sign was precise. Each one came true. Elias realized the truth too late. This wasn't prophecy. It wasn't predicting the end. It was counting down. The final section of the scroll was sealed by a symbol shaped like a broken circle. No matter how hard Elias tried, it would not open. The ink there resisted the eye, blurring, twisting, slipping away from focus. The monks begged him to stop, but the scroll had already begun to change him. He no longer slept. He claimed sleep wasted time, and time, he said, was now precious beyond forgiveness. His hair grayed in weeks. He spoke less to people and more to the text, arguing with it, pleading. demanding revisions, like a man bargaining with a judge who had already passed sentence. One night, the final seal opened, not because Elias broke it, but because the scroll decided he was ready. The last passage was short. There will be no fire. There will be no flood. There will be no darkness. Elias felt relief for exactly one breath. The end of time will arrive quietly, the scroll continued. Moments will not stop. They will repeat. The same second will be lived again and again, thinning reality until it can no longer hold meaning. Elias understood then. The end of time was not destruction. It was stagnation. People would keep moving, speaking, aging, but progress would die. No true change, no real future, just endless motion inside a cage too small to notice. The final line was written in ink, darker than the rest. The reader ensures completion. The monastery tried to burn the scroll. The flames bent away from it, as if afraid. They tried to drown it. The water refused to touch the ink. Finally, in desperation, they buried it deep beneath stone and salt. But it didn't matter, because the signs had already begun spreading beyond the coast. Reports came from distant cities, clocks freezing for a single second each night, conversations looping without awareness, a sense, subtle but growing, that the world was hesitating, like a breath held too long. Elias vanished shortly after. Some claimed he walked into the sea. Others believed the scroll had taken him somewhere else, somewhere outside the river of time, where observers become participants. The monastery fell silent within a year. And now, centuries later, scholars argue whether the scroll was real. No one can agree where it went, but there's a reason old traditions warn against repeating certain questions. A reason some libraries restrict access to texts that feel wrong. Because if time ever truly ends, it won't announce itself with thunder. It will arrive as déjà vu, as repetition, as the creeping sense that today feels too familiar. And the worst part, you won't know when it started. If you felt like parts of that story sounded uncomfortably familiar, good. That's where myths do their best work. If you enjoy stories that blur history, prophecy, and fear, subscribe to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries and sleep lightly tonight.